I don't know how many more bottoms I could have hit. And,
Mhm.
I don't think you have to always hit a bottom, because unfortunately in this day and age, bottom could be death. I mean, this addiction is totally different today than what it was 20 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. But my moment of clarity was, I'll never forget this, is after all the stuff we just mentioned, after the suicide and different things. I remember sitting in a therapy office with my mom and dad. And again, you have to remember the family dynamic and the relationship that I had with my family and my upbringing. And my dad just looked across at me, because I was struggling. And he looks over and he's just like, "Look, mom and I don't know what to do anymore. Our marriage is suffering. The family's at just a complete disarray. Obviously, there's a lot of codependency in there, but uh, you know, mom and I are lying in bed like two planks of wood, just waiting for the phone call that you're dead." And
Mm.
when he said that, there was, I don't know what it was. It was literally a moment of clarity. It was like a light came through, and I was like, "Look, I don't care enough about myself or my well-being." I said, "You guys will become my motivation." And that was like right around the whole celebrity rehab. It was like around that whole time that this all started to
Yeah.
take place, and that became the shifting moment where I'm like, "Look, I don't care enough about myself, but I care about you guys." And they became my motivation.
Mm.
And honestly, that was, for me, that's what I needed. I needed something to hold on to like that. And it's different for everybody. Some people, it has to be strictly for them. But there was enough connection with that where I held on to that. And I'd say by after like 7, 8 months, my life obviously started to change and to get better. And it's something that I ended up taking a hold of, and wanted to continue pursuing for myself. And, I ended up getting multiple years of sobriety after that.
I think that's actually a really interesting point you make, because some people aren't at the point where they care enough about themselves. And it has to be about, or sometimes it can be about, caring that much about a child, a parent that you're going to hurt, whatever it is. I remember, as you know, about when I was younger, my father struggled with addiction and he ended up dying of a cocaine overdose when he was 44 and I was 15. And they had asked me when I think I was 11 at the time, 2 or 9 or something, to write him a letter for intervention. And I think the intention behind that was to get him to care about something else, because he clearly didn't care about himself at that point, right? And didn't care if he died. He just cared about his addiction. So I think they were using me as a tool to be like, if you don't care enough about losing your life, care for this girl. And I remember specifically them asking me to say, I don't want to have to tell my friends that, I grew up without a dad, which almost brings me to tears because that's what happened. And he didn't, take that so seriously. But um, I got to spend, as you were talking about with celebrity rehab, a good 3 weeks with you, and we had some very interesting people in our group. I thought it'd be fun if we could talk about it, because we actually hadn't
Yeah.
talked about it in a long time. We had a total of 8 people in celebrity rehab with us, who are all great people. Unfortunately, which I also think is very interesting, 2 people are no longer here with us due to addiction. Jason Davis and Frankie Lawns, who, were everybody was such a big part of our show. But did you stay? I know you stayed in touch with Jason, but were you close with him before he died?
Yeah. Ironically, we reconnected. We'd stayed in communication the whole time, but we had actually gotten closest after the show. That last 9 months of his life, we reconnected. And I'd started spending a lot of time with him, and he was doing really well. And it's just, it literally, as you stated, when they both passed, it gave me goosebumps, because it's devastating, to see how this takes away people. And yeah, I stayed in touch with Jay, but I never stayed in touch with Frankie. And it's so funny that you bring them up, because I mean, they literally were the light of that show. I mean, I was between the two of them. It was literally the two on there that I've never laughed so hard in my entire life, between the two of them. From Jason going to snatching her wig off, to her just talking so much shit to him. And I mean, they were so funny. And it's really, really sad that they're no longer here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is so sad, and I love them dearly. I really enjoyed, I will say, I know that sounds weird, the 3 weeks that I had on that show. I was convinced to do the show because, obviously my name had become very popular at the time because of a little scandal I was in. But the reason why I chose to go is because internally I had become like a recluse. The news was talking about me and creating a narrative for me that was very debilitating to me.
Mm.
And I didn't deal with that when I was there, but I dealt with, what got me there kind of. And when I sat with Dr. Drew, I didn't know what I needed, but he convinced me the night before. He said, "Listen, I understand you. You've made some poor decisions because you're struggling with a love addiction," which I thought sounded so dumb. I'm like, this is embarrassing. People are going on this show for real addictions that are killing them. And, I'm not going to go on there and say that. I don't have an addiction. But I knew that being in the same room with him, as you know, it's like you're the only person there. Like you feel
Yeah.
so safe and understood and listened to. And that's what I really needed. So that's why I chose to do the show, and I got so much out of it. I dealt with losing my father from a cocaine overdose at a young age, and losing that sort of unconditional male figure very quickly, and then losing my fiance in September 11th. And that, I mean, it really helped me. But not only that, it helped me to be in a house with 7 other people that were struggling from addictions that I didn't really understand. I didn't know what that
Yeah.
was like. And I enjoyed every single person, maybe with the exception of Janice, because we got into so many arguments. But all in all, I thought it was great. People always say, "Oh, reality TV is so scripted." That was not scripted. Did you think it was scripted?
No, that's about as real as it gets. I mean, there's
Yeah,
corners in every corner of the room. I mean, they literally just. I don't remember reenacting one thing there.
yeah.
I mean, I think maybe some of the voiceovers that we did, but I think everything that was done there was. I don't think people were literally mentally or emotionally or physically in a place to be able to redo shots,
Yeah.
or be set up for things. I think that was a very real experience.
Right. And so let's talk about who was on it. It was Leif Garrett, who people
Yeah,
might not remember, but he was an amazing singer, and he was fantastic in this group. He really made the group. He kind of, even though he was the one dealing with like a heroin addiction, right? Is
yeah,
that what he had? He
yeah,
was like
yeah,
the glue that held us all together, kind of.
yeah, yeah. There was
And then
Jeremy London, right?
mhm. Yeah, and Jeremy was very funny because he was coming off some scandal where he claimed he had been kidnapped and thrown into the back of a car and forced to do drugs, and I was like, "Does that happen?"
Yeah, dude, I forgot about that. And we had Eric Roberts, and we
Eric
had
Roberts was great. Yeah, he brought credibility to the show,
yeah, he
and
brought
then
credibility.
right, and then Frankie, no one knew who she was, but they all knew who Keisha Cole, and she was Keisha Cole's
Yeah,
mom, but she was
yeah.
amazing. Who else did we have? Was that
And
it?
then we had
Oh, and Janice Dickinson, what am I saying? My roommate.
yeah, Janice Dickinson, which she's doing fantastic. I actually reconnected with her recently and talked to her. She's happily married, and she's doing the deal, and she's
That's
doing
amazing.
well.
She had just started talking about dating that guy, I think, when we were doing the show. So he's the therapist, right? Or the psychologist.
Yeah, ironic, right?
Yeah,
Ironic how that
totally
pans out.
ironic.
But what a trip! No, that show was that would actually be a funny show to go back and watch. Like that's something that I could. I
Yeah.
mean, it's even because of Jason and Frankie. That's something I might have to pull out and
Well, I
dust
think
off
it's
the
on Amazon
DVDs.
Prime in case anyone wants to watch it. I think it was season 4 or something.